So something popped up on my Facebook memories today. It happened 2 years ago, and it reminds me of the question that friends and family, people I meet, always ask me. What's the craziest thing I've ever found in a storage unit? Or what's the best thing I've ever found? Oddly enough, both of those things came from the same location. Go figure. Not at the same time. The best thing I ever found, the best single item I ever found, a 1968 Porsche 911. Yeah. One owner car. It belonged to a college professor who bought the car new. It was a tangerine orange color. The car developed some engine trouble in the late 1970s, and he rented a storage unit, so he had a place to work on the car against his family's advice, I guess, because he told them he got rid of the car. So he paid on storage for this car since 1979 up until I bought the unit. I think it was about 4 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago I bought the unit. That's when he passed away. His family had no idea he had the storage unit. They wanted nothing to do with it. The car was up on jack stands. Wheels and tires were off of it. Front suspension was removed. Engine was removed. It was a basket case, but it was a relatively solid, original paint, unmolested 1968 Porsche 911. And unit opens up. Everybody's standing there looking. Okay. Who wants it? You know, starting the bidding. I throw out $50. Everybody's like, it's a rusty Volkswagen Beetle. What do we want that? What do we want to do with that? And I'm just looking around like, okay, is this seriously about to happen? I win the car for $50. The other people that were there that knew anything about cars, they thought it was a Volkswagen Beetle. Hey, I wasn't going to tell them otherwise. We go inside the unit, and one guy I know walks to the front of the car, rubs the emblem off, and his face. You know what? This isn't a Volkswagen. You know what this is? I'm like, yeah, it's an early Porsche 911. So I paid $50 for the unit, and I put the car up on sale for Facebook after I went through all the parts and organized everything, took a nice picture, everything laid out. I put the car up on Facebook for sale, Craigslist, for like $11,000, and everybody's either lowballing me or telling me I'm crazy for asking that much. I'll never get anywhere close to that price. It's only worth $1,500. Blah blah blah. The transmission was worth more than $1,500. Put it that way. It's people, you know how they are. Internet, everybody's an expert. I had experts calling me, begging me to sell them the car, but they wanted to pay, half what I wanted. I was like, no, I was pretty determined I was going to get that price. So I threw up on eBay with good pictures, good listing, and no reserve. It ends up selling for $12,650. It had to be that extra $50. So I made $12,600 in that car, and it was 3 weeks after I bought it. So that was the nicest single item score to date. I've had better units that yielded more profits, obviously, but a single item and one of my most favorite scores was definitely the Porsche. The gentleman I sold it to ended up having the missing brake parts, a year correct engine, not the original one out of the car obviously, but he had a correct engine for it. Basically, he loosely put it back together, cleaned it up, added all the missing parts that were missing, and he turned around and sold it on eBay again, and he got, I think, 24 or 25,000 out of it. So he made a little bit of money on it. So it worked out. That was definitely my most favorite single item find. My most memorable, or the craziest experience I ever had, was 2 years ago this day. It's funny, I was just talking with somebody about this because people ask, what's the craziest thing you ever found? Well, here it is. Bought a unit, the same location that the Porsche came out of. Porsche, sorry. And I bought it because it had a set of Klipsch hearsay speakers in it. That's what I saw. It had another pair of Klipsch Cornwalls, I believe they were, and a bunch of various vintage stereo components, and it was a nice unit. I was happy with it. Took me a while to go through. It was packed front to back. It had a door on each end, and I was in it the one day and digging around, and I find this dresser that's turned up against the wall, so you couldn't open the drawers, and it seemed like it had stuff packed around it to, so you couldn't get to it. It was odd because all the rest of the furniture was facing out, except for this one piece. So I get it turned enough so I can get inside some of the drawers, and I open up the drawer, and I pull out this little box, and it's I didn't think anything of it. It was a radiation detector. I'm like, oh, that's neat. Look it up. It's like 150, 200 bucks. So like, nice score. It's got an original box with it. It still worked. Digging around, I find this journal. I start flipping through it, and I'm like, okay, this guy was a little crazy. And I find, I think it was 3 or 4 envelopes, like brown or manila envelopes. They're sealed. One's addressed to like the New York Times, and it says "hot" in quotation marks. Another one says "to the authorities" and says something else on it. But another one says "caution, radioactive." And I'm like, okay, maybe it just means it's like hot stuff, like news. And then it dawned on me, what did I find a few minutes earlier? The radiation testing meter. So I had a little scare there. So collected myself a little bit, jumped out of the unit, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. So before I didn't want to freak out, so I called the district manager, public storage, and he told me to wait there for him. So he drove out there. Hey Jim, how you doing? Blah blah. Showed him what I found. He picks him up. He's looking at him. He's like, oh, this is weird. I'm like, yeah, isn't it? And he's like, well, I don't think we should call the police unless we have to. I'm like, okay. He opens one up. Yeah, he opened one up, looked inside, dropped it on the ground, and he's like, we need to call the police. And I'm looking at him like, why did you open it? Well, I had to be sure there was something in there. Yeah. Whatever. Anyways, that was the start of being stuck at public storage for 6 hours that day. I don't know if any of you are from the Chicago area, you're familiar with Fermilab. The local police called county, county called state, state called the federal government. Federal government called in a special team from, it was a HAZMAT response team from Fermilab. They had a big truck and trailer set up with a tent, and they closed off. It was this location's on a cul-de-sac, so they closed off the entire street, wouldn't let anybody enter, they wouldn't let anybody leave, including me. This went on for 6 hours. They sent someone in to talk to us, and first words, "Did you open anything?" The district manager, "Well, yeah, I wanted to see." "What is wrong with you?" Just starts yelling, just unloads on him. And I was like, "I told you." Well, I'm just in the background. "I told him not to open it. He wouldn't listen to me." "Jim, shut up." "Okay, sorry." And so their level of anticipation, I don't know if you want to call it that, went from here to here, like a heartbeat. So they came out with their team of people dressed in full body suits with all the seams taped up. This freaked me out, rightfully so. You know, I'm on my, texting my wife, calling her, and she's freaking out, and she's like, "Oh my God, you're gonna get sick," and it was pretty freaky. And so one by one, each team member had their own device that they use for testing and scanning. One by one, they had to clear each one of us, make sure that we were, safe to be around. And you gotta remember, I was using my own personal van, my own personal vehicle to bring stuff out of this unit. I was halfway through this unit at this point, so they had to clear my van to make sure that was okay. And that was freaky. I'm like, I was bringing this stuff home. I was worried for my family. So they cleared us. They cleared our vehicles, and then they moved to the unit. Well, when they got to the unit, their meters did pick up radiation. So what it turned out to be was this gentleman worked for the U.S. government, and he developed cancer. So he was paranoid that the government was poisoning him. And he had yogurt samples from his lunch from whatever building he lived in, or building he worked in for the government. He had yogurt samples from his daily lunch. And he was convinced that they were feeding him radioactive yogurt. I've got his whole journal that documents all this. I don't know where it's at, but I've got it somewhere. It is bizarre. And it turns out it was radioactive. Go figure. Maybe he was onto something. But whether he did it himself or whatnot. But they told us that the levels were ever so slightly higher than normal background radiation. And they said it wasn't enough to make us sick, but it was enough to set off their meters. So it was like a gray area between safe and not safe. But they cleared us. They said that we were fine, good to go. They took some of the samples with them, and they actually let me keep some of the envelopes with the samples in them, which I thought was weird, but I still have them to this day in my warehouse somewhere. I figured, maybe to make a good story, someday. But the funniest part about it is that they had this big yellow, like 55-gallon HAZMAT containment barrel that they had to drag out and use. And when they were done with all their stuff, they took off all their disposable outfits and gloves and masks, and they had to place them all in this barrel and sealed up. And once they realized that everything was okay, they left the barrel with us and said, "Who's the one that called the police?" And I look at the DM and I'm like, "He did." He's like, "Well, he called me." And okay, but you called the police? Like, yeah. And who's the one that opened the package? He's like, "Well, I did." And okay, you're getting the bill for this. This barrel belongs to you now. That was an expensive barrel. And I don't know what that bill was, but it was, I'm sure Public Storage wasn't too happy with that bill. Coincidentally, that district manager quit like a month or two later, so said the stress of the job was getting to him, so I think that had something to do with it. I still talk to him. He still sends me text messages sometimes. He was a good guy. He really was. So and when I went to leave, he told me, he's like, "Jim, I don't want this barrel. What do I do with it?" I'm like, "I don't know, put it in your garbage." He's like, "No, you don't understand. I don't want to look at it. I don't want anything to do with it." I'm like, "Fine, I'll take it in the storage unit." I put it in the storage unit. It ended up in my warehouse. And I had it sitting next to the dumpster for, I think, 2 months before somebody took it. So, it was pretty funny. But that's my story of my craziest storage unit find to date. There's video clips online of news helicopters flying around over us. You can see the whole street closed off. You see my van parked there. You see me walking in and out of the building. It was pretty wild. And one more thing, I like to pay a little tribute, homage, whatever you want to call it. This kind of reminds me of one of my favorite YouTube channels to watch. I like VinWiki with Ed. I can't pronounce his last name, but I love those stories. It reminds me of me and my friends sitting around talking about the crazy stuff we used to do with cars. Sometimes still do. But yeah, keep up the good work, Ed. Doubt you're watching this, but good job. Maybe we can make a storage auction version of his show. That'd be cool, wouldn't it? All right, you guys take care. We'll see you.